Brexit is the unprecedented decision Great Britain has made, or at least parts of it has made, to exit the EU. How did such a drastic decision come into being? On Thursday, June 23rd, a referendum was held where the British, Welsh, Scots, and Irish all voted either to remain in the EU or exit the EU. This referendum has been demanded by the Independence Party, which, though fairly small, has been gradually building support in England. The Conservative Party, which includes the Prime Minister, now ex-Prime Minister, David Cameron, saw the Conservative Party losing voters to the Independence Party. Therefore, Cameron promised that if the Conservative Party was again elected as the dominant party in the House of Commons, meaning that he too would be re-elected, then the Conservative Party would hold a referendum for independence from the EU. While this did succeed in winning back Conservative voters who had moved to the Independence Party, it meant that a referendum did have to be held, despite the fact that the majority of leaders in Great Britain believed it to be a poor idea. Therefore, when the referendum was passed with 52% of the votes to leave and 48% of the votes to stay, everyone, including politicians, voters, and the world alike, were fairly shocked. As you can see from the map, citizens of London, Scotland, Wales, and parts of Northern Ireland voted to remain in the EU. However, the majority of England voted to leave. This created a very divided Great Britain, where members of the Union would be forced to leave the EU against their people's will. What will likely happen? Well, if Great Britain truly decides to leave the EU, it will likely result in the Union dissolving, where Scotland and possibly Northern Ireland will become independent nations from England. Also, London could potentially remove itself from England and become a city-state. Therefore, with all of these potentially drastic changes in the future, David Cameron, the Prime Minister who allowed the referendum to occur, resigned from his office because he could not support Brexit, but also refused to ignore the decisions made by voters. Therefore, a new Prime Minister needed to be elected. An election was to be held. However, everyone dropped out of the election except for Theresa May. By default, because she is largely supported by the House of Commons, and because there is no one else to oppose her, has become the Prime Minister of England. However, it is important to remember that no one voted her into the position. She essentially just ended up with it. Furthermore, May says she wholeheartedly supports Brexit, despite the fact that before the referendum, she was wholeheartedly against Brexit. Therefore, Brexit. With much of Great Britain concerned about what will happen in the next 2 years as Parliament makes its decisions about whether it will really exit the EU or not, what can be done? Before discussing logical solutions, let's first overview the basics of Parliament. Parliament is broken into 3 parts: the House of Commons, the House of Lords, and the Queen. The House of Commons and the House of Lords work as a checks and balances system, while the Queen essentially is a figurehead who approves things. Here is the House of Lords, which is denoted by the color red. See the red benches? Also, as a side note, the monarchy is denoted by the color blue. As you can see, the carpet is blue because the queen or king at the time is allowed to enter this room, but may not go any further into Parliament, because Parliament is meant to function without the influence of the monarchy. The House of Lords can create laws, but largely instead checks the laws created by the House of Commons and offers addendums. Therefore, the House of Lords cannot kill any bills created by the House of Commons, but can stall the bill by sending it back for revisions. The House of Lords is divided into parties as well. None of the representatives in these parties are elected. Rather, they are selected in one of three ways. Firstly, there are the Lord Spirituals, which are the bishops that sit in Parliament. Then, there are the Lord Temporals, which either inherit the position from their father or are selected by the Prime Minister and approved by the Queen due to their high esteem in an important field. Therefore, it is fair to say that the House of Lords does not represent all of the people, but rather just some of the people. Also, you can see that Conservatives have the largest chunk of representatives, followed by the Labour Party. Now, here is the House of Commons, denoted by the color green. See the green benches? Also, referencing the previous side note, the monarchy still is denoted by the color blue. However, notice how there isn't any blue in this room? This is because the monarchy is forbidden to enter this room, where the majority of laws are created. Now, the House of Commons does essentially represent the people of Great Britain. Each constituency has one member of Parliament, or an MP. There are 605 MPs in total. The MP belongs to a political group. For instance, you can see that in 2016, 329 MPs belong to the Conservative Party, making it the leading party. The Prime Minister is a member of the House of Commons, who is also elected by the House of Commons. Therefore, most often the Prime Minister is the leading member of the strongest party. In the case of the referendum, David Cameron was the leading member of the Conservative Party, and therefore was selected by the House of Commons to be Prime Minister. Elections for the House of Commons, and therefore the Prime Minister, occurs every 5 years. However, since Cameron has resigned in the first year of the 5-year period, Theresa May became Prime Minister without an election, because re-election wasn't technically required, also because she was well respected with the Conservative Party, and because no one else wanted to run. Therefore, Brexit. What can be done? What logically could fix all of these problems? What could logically lead to the best decisions being made for Great Britain? Well, logically, we need a time machine. And this time machine would take us back in time, but not to last year. We're talking way back in time. To the time of the Tudors and the Stuarts. We are going to go back to the 15 and 1600s to find our solution, because what we need is a new Prime Minister who knows Great Britain and how it will work. So, logically, the only thing we can do is go back in time and ask one of the monarchs from the Tudor or Stuart dynasty to become the new Prime Minister. Now, this may be a violation of everything we know, because Parliament and monarchy don't mix. But, Brexit. So, we are going to do this anyway. Here's the deal. The House of Commons will elect a new Prime Minister, and this Prime Minister will be selected from the Tudor or Stuart dynasties. Who will be the members of the House of Commons? You. Yes, you. You will cast the votes to select which monarch will become the next Prime Minister to decide the future of Great Britain. Interestingly, you, yes, you, will also be playing the roles of the candidates for Prime Minister, which include the following: Henry VII, Henry VIII, Edward VI, Bloody Mary, Elizabeth I, Wildcard Mary Queen of Scots, Lady Jane Grey, another wildcard, James I, Charles first, James second, William III and Mary II, and last but not least, Anne. Who will be elected the next Prime Minister? Who will decide the outcome of Brexit? The decision is in your hands.